Now it's one of the only countries on earth that doesn't celebrate May 1st officially. In the last few years, it's been immigrants who have caused May 1st to be reborn in this country. Immigrant folks marching for their rights in the streets here in San Diego, LA, Chicago, every other major city in this country over the past few years. And I've been a part of that. I've been privileged to be a part of that over the past few years. A few years ago, I was talking to somebody with the media about May 1st. And she was asking me, you know, isn't this enough protesting? Don't you think you've done enough?
No.
Is this over yet? Aren't you done marching? Aren't you done protesting by now? That's a good question. Are we done? And when are we going to be done? When are we going to be done marching? That was what she was asking me. What are your demands? When are you going to be happy? When are you going to stop marching? What if some of the legislation was passed that some folks were talking about regarding immigration? Some folks in Congress were talking about legalizing a certain number of people. Some folks were talking about a certain amount of what they call amnesty. Some folks were talking about a certain amount of lessening the pressure on immigrants. And if that were to be passed, would we be done marching? No. What if we passed the more progressive stuff people are talking about? The more progressives among us who talk about legalizing everybody who doesn't have papers. What if we talked about that? Then would we be done marching? What if we did the most progressive thing as far as immigration? What if we were to simply say, let's make it legal to come back and forth across the border? Yeah. Anybody from Latin America can come back and forth across the border. What if we were to do that? Then would this struggle be over? Then would we be done marching? The thing is, right now the border is open for everything but people. Right now the border is open for corporations, it's open for Walmart, it's open for the big guys to go back and forth, go to Mexico, Guatemala, Dominican Republic, and any other country that they feel like, to go take advantage of wages that are low, of working conditions that are low. The borders are open for those companies. There is no border for money, for companies, for products. So people working in Mexico are allowed to make tennis shoes, but when those tennis shoes flow up north and are sold for 10 times the price, the people are not allowed to follow that flow of capital northward into this country. So, are we done marching? Is it done? When is it going to be done? I say we're not going to be done. We're not going to be done marching until every single person on this earth has control over their destiny, until every person on this earth is earning a fair wage for the work that they are doing as a human being, whether they are a farmer, whether they're working in a factory, whatever they are doing. Until that happens, it's not going to be over. 15 minutes away in Tijuana, you have neighborhoods that have had chemicals dumped into them by U.S. companies that set up maquiladora sweatshops outside those communities. You've got communities like Chilpancingo where babies have been born with half a skull because of the chemicals that our companies are dumping into their community. As long as that happens, it's not over. 2 hours away in Mañadero, you've got fields of tomatoes, fields of vegetables that are run by U.S. companies where women working in the fields, pregnant women, have pesticides sprayed on them, have babies born with defects, hideous deformities, all so that we can have a cheaper tomato. Also that Taco Bell can give us a cheaper tomato. As long as that's going on, we're not done. As long as communities like San Juan Cuauhtospam, Oaxaca exist, communities that I've visited that have lost all of their lifeblood, everybody is left for the city, everybody's left for northern Mexico, everybody's left for the United States because they can't work, because they can't compete with U.S. subsidies. As long as that's going on, we're not done. As long as these situations exist and are multiplied by 10,000 and multiplied by Mexico, Guatemala, El Salvador, and every other country south of us, as long as that's happening, we're not done marching.
I work with the 10-Year Coalition for Peace and Justice, and we've been fighting since 2001 to end the wars in Afghanistan and to end the wars in Iraq and now to end the war in Libya. But what I want to do is I want to connect that to the budget crisis in California and this idea that we've been hearing that we all have to share the sacrifices. Well, I think most of us here know that that's bullshit. But because what are they trying to do? They're trying to lay us off. They're trying to cut back our pensions. They're trying to make us pay more for health care, and they're trying to shut down our libraries and our rec centers. But as everybody here, I'm sure, knows, this is a phony crisis. There's plenty of money available. And let's look at two examples. Since 2001, the United States has spent over $1.2 trillion on the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. That means California has paid $155 billion for those two wars. During that same period, what has the budget deficit been for California? $118 billion. In other words, if we weren't spending our money for those wars, those imperialist wars, we would have a budget surplus in California of $37 billion. Imagine how many school teachers that would pay for. Imagine how many libraries. Imagine how many jobs. Imagine how many pensions. But it's going to pay for this war. Okay. Without the wars, we wouldn't have this budget crisis. And now let's look at another myth. They've been saying that the rich are unfairly taxed in California.
Hey, Paul.
Real good. The rich 1% take 7.2% of their income in taxes. The poorest 20% pay 11.3%. That is, the poorer you are, the more taxes you pay as a percentage of your income. If the rich took their fair share, the same proportion, this budget crisis would be over. So I want to leave you with two very simple ideas. They're not going to solve everything, but they're going to take us quite a long way. One of them is tax the rich, and the other is end the wars. So tax the rich, end the wars.
End the war. Tax the rich. End the war. Tax the rich. End the war. Tax the rich. End the war.